Isles of the Emberdark just released.
I know.
It was supposed to come out after the RPG.
I know.
And we need to prepare for White Sand.
Yeah, let's record this video. Sule! Isles of the Emberdark is here. The book is incredible, and if you want our honest review, check that out here. This book doesn't pull any punches with the Cosmere lore drops and hidden connections, but there were some drops that you might have missed, and some truly crazy connections hiding below the surface. Today, we have gone through every major reveal that you might have missed in Emberdark, and put together our top 10. If you don't want to be embarrassed by your lack of deep lore next time you talk to a Sanderson fan, then you should probably subscribe. Like now. Today, there will be spoilers for Isles of the Emberdark and the rest of the Cosmere. This book likely takes place the furthest in the future, though Brandon still has yet to release an official timeline. And he promised that after Wind and Truth, so... Regardless, you should make sure you're caught up. Dhatri the Lawnarch has a lot to say about a place in the Cosmere we have yet to see. The Lawnarchs are a race of humans who have evolved feathers instead of hair. I wonder what conditions are required for this to happen. Anyway, he speaks of the Grand Apparatus, a massive machine made up of cities, each with thousands of cycling rooms, and where each room is shared by everyone. A denizen can request any room they need from the apparatus, and it will connect to their current location. We know the apparatus is pretty closely connected to Invention, but we'll get to that later. This is also the current home of the Lawnarch people. If the Lawnarch are Invention's people, we can assume that Invention has invested this place. We do see Dhatri use some form of invested art to electronically control the dynamic systems with sparks of electricity from his fingers. Maybe this was a form of technology he has access to, but it came across as a special ability only Dhatri could do. Now, Wind and Truth told us that Invention has been busy, well, inventing. From Wind and Truth chapter 115, I reached out to the others for help. Invention, who traveled the Cosmere, creating great marvels. While you might assume that this Monsters Inc. planet was one of those inventions,
Get inside! That was weird.
here's the part you may have missed. This apparatus is actually a pre-shattering construction. This likely means that Adonalsium created the Grand Apparatus, clearly using more of his Invention intent. Did Invention feel drawn to this place post-shattering, expanding the apparatus and investing his people? The heartbreak for Dhatri comes from the fact that the Sleepless have started using this apparatus for experiments, testing its inhabitants in a way that does not sound friendly. It honestly gives me big Fallout vibes, and if the Sleepless are anything like Vault Tech, Dhatri isn't too thrilled about this, understandably, and I wonder what the connection is here. If this apparatus existed pre-shattering, did the Sleepless have something to do with its creation? Are they connected to Invention somehow? Was the apparatus made to be a vault for one of the Dawn Shards? It does sound a lot like change. Ed the Arcanist was our walking lorebook through much of this story. He gave us a lot of concrete answers to questions we had, but in chapter 30, he opened a rather strange door. Don't you, Ed, literally worship a Scadrian? Nas asked. That's different, Ed said. He is nice. Plus, he's the only known living shard who's performed the... Wait, what? No, that's literally it. The book cuts off there. He does not expand on this thought ever. Now here's the thing. There are only a few Scadrians we know of that Ed could be worshipping. Kelsier, or the Survivor, is a rather popular option. The problem is that, well, he's dead. This really only leaves Sazed in the path, which is further supported by the fact that Ed wears a Pathian earring. With this in mind, what could Sazed, or Harmony, or Discord, have performed? The wording is strange because he's the only living shard to have done this, implying that shards may have done this in the past. Could this be the fusing of two shards, meaning that Taravangian has been rusted and ruined? Could this be a reference to Harmony switching to Discord? Could this even be the first time we've seen a combined shard split back into two separate shards? Brandon is doing something very intentional here by being vague and not giving names, but still giving a lot of qualifiers. If I know his style, this hint will be explored soon, likely in Mistborn Era 3, and won't be at all what we expected. Dhatri is a planet that seems to get more of the spotlight with every new novel. The home of the Primal Aethers has been shrouded in mystery, but in this book we get something very interesting. Here is the quote from Emberdark chapter 22. Unfortunately, Dhatri didn't have a perpendicularity anymore. This could mean, well, a lot. Is it possible that the Primal Aethers are so invested that they can make one themselves? We know that Twin Soul believes them to be at least equal to Adonalsium. If that's the case, why is it now gone? It's not like the shards can particularly control whether or not they have a perpendicularity. The best thing they can do is hide it. Could the Aethers control this better? The more likely answer, in my opinion, is that Dhatri used to be invested by a shard. We have yet to see a perpendicularity that wasn't created by one of the 16 shards. Autonomy can create them with her avatars, like we see on Pachi, but it's still hers. So if a shard invested Dhatri, who would it be? And what would have happened to make them leave? I have absolutely no basis for this speculation, but I'm going to predict that it was whimsy. I want your thoughts on this, though. Leave a comment below if you have a good theory here. Isles of the Emberdark connected a lot of the Cosmere, and casual Casual lore drops were plentiful, but one stuck out to us like a sore thumb. A third group of mortal people, the Vaxillian. This comes to us from the Sleepless Chrysalis in chapter 46. We've learned that the mortals, be them human, Shodel, or true Vaxillian, fear us. Ed the Arcanist was confirmed to be of Vaxillian heritage, but he was born and raised in Silverlight. I have to wonder if this is in reference to Yolan's races, as there are other mortal species throughout the Cosmere that could have been referenced, like Singers and Kolos. I get the sense that these were all Adonalsium's original people. Brandon has been particularly quiet about Vax in the past, refusing to even confirm if it were a planet. There is a quick sequence in Mistborn Secret History that I think helps confirm the theory. When Vin finally defeated Ruin, AT appeared in the cognitive realm. He looked around confused and simply said, Vax? We know that AT, like all the original vessels, was from Yolan. From what we know, Scadrial was created by AT and Laris right after the Shattering, meaning he likely hasn't been to other planets. This is speculation, of course, but I'm working off the evidence we do have. It would make a lot of sense that AT would think that he woke up in a place he was familiar with. Maybe a place in the Yolish system? Also, if they're separate from humans, why does Ed look like a normal human? Chrysalis stated true Vaxillians, so maybe Ed is a hybrid between Vaxillian and human. We still know nothing about them, save that they are mortal, so we'll have to wait for a slip up from Brandon or the next novel. We finally got to visit Silverlight, and it was just as magical as I ever imagined. A Shadesbar metropolis with skyscrapers made from dragon steel, dragon tycoons, and people from all over the Cosmere. Oh yeah, and a triple perpendicularity. This perpendicularity is called the Silverlight Nexus, and it hangs out below the city for all to see. There's something very unique about this well of power though. From chapter 30, the Nexus was unique among perpendicularities, as it led to not one place in the physical realm, but three, one of which was hidden, shadowed, the planet of Yolan. We know that Yolish connection is called the Great Star, a floating city of dragons that is closed off to the stinky mortals. Unfortunately, she doesn't elaborate further on the other two connections, so what could they be? They could be Yolish cities, other planets in the Yolish system, or even other planets across the Cosmere. Now, we haven't gotten that star chart yet, but this triple perpendicularity gives us a lot of questions. For one, what powers the perpendicularity? Are the dragons powerful enough to fuel it? Is there a shard still present on Yolan? Is there a dawn shard hiding out there? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Seeing the Iriali in a new place always piques my theorist's mind. We know that this long trail only has 7 stops. In our Iriali theory, here, we listed out all of the known stops up to Wind and Truth, or so we thought. Our new Arcanist friend Ed shares a rather depressing new piece of intel about the Iriali. This sadly takes us a step back from piecing together the trail. From chapter 30, all of the long trail tapestries have the same information. Records of visits to various planets the Iriali investigated as potential homelands on their voyage. So this means the Iriali scout out their locations. This tapestry was from the family that Starling saved in the Emberdark, and it was pointing the family to Dromonod's perpendicularity. I immediately took this to mean that Dromonod was in fact one of the stops on the trail, but once Ed shares this information with the crew, we cannot necessarily conclude that. This one little detail tells us that just because we see the Iriali have a presence on a planet, doesn't mean that that planet's on the trail. We know for sure that Roshar was the 4th land, since this was confirmed by the cobbler Yim, but this is all we can actually be sure about. The Lumaran Iriali supposedly had a whole island to themselves, but they left 300 years before the start of Tress. It is possible that Lumar was one of these stops, but we don't actually know how long the Iriali were there, or if it even counted as one of their lands. Additionally, we cannot conclude that a community of people that look like the Iriali on Scadrial means that the planet was one of their lands. Unfortunately, all of the Iriali Theoriali have taken a hit. Looks like we're back to the drawing board. The evil of Threnody was, until recently, mostly lore from Arcanum Unbounded. Thankfully, in Emberdark, it is one of the main players. We learned that these beings are made of anti-investiture, like Anti-Light on Roshar. This evil is a result of ambition being destroyed by Odium, which we also learned happened very soon after the Shattering, when Odium attacked his sibling? Now here's a quote taken from Starling in chapter 54. A long time ago, when the shards were newly born, one named Odium attacked and killed his sibling. A god was destroyed, torn apart, its intent removed, and pieces made into some kind of terrible negative energy. They roam the Emberdark, seeking souls to consume. Yes, this is likely a reference to Ambition and Odium being shard siblings of Adonalsium. Ulida, or Ambition, was a Shodel, and Reyes, or Odium, was a human, so there likely isn't much direct familial connection. I do wonder, though, if these two had some sort of sibling-like rivalry pre-Shattering that led Reyes to attack so soon. We also know that this clash is what created the Knell, also known as the Grand Disturbance of the the shard ambition. It is a natural beacon near Threnody that gives off pulses. These waves are called the current, and it is used to navigate Shadesmar. Yes, these are like allomantic pulses that seekers can feel, or even like the rhythms and tones heard by singers. One thing you might not have known is that this was not the first mention of the current. We actually saw the current referenced by Hwint of Neri in the Elscaller story deck. He claimed that the current is what moved his boat as there was no wind in Shadesmar. A little extra information on the evil here. These are classified as type 1-6 invested entities, which means that Vasher's system of measurement seems to have been adopted and expanded by Silverlight scholars. I could keep going on about these implications, so I'm gonna save this topic for a future video. Frost is gone. This seems unfair because we've never actually gotten to meet the dragon save for a few letters in Stormlight and now the prologue of Emberdark. And yes, he was also present for Kakoban's death, making him a nice little tomb. Starling, being Frost's niece, is obviously very distressed by this, and her uncle's alleged death is lorded over her by Xyces. When Starling's shackles were weakened by the Scadrian device, she went to the Spirit Shores where all dragon spirits go upon passing. She hoped to find her uncle there, but of course found Hoid instead. Hoid was actually there looking for Frost, since he seemed to get himself trapped in a vault, but he was also unable to find him, so what gives? Well, I think it's obvious that something pretty bad happened to Frost, but I don't think it's as simple as him dying. I think his soul was trapped in some way, or even worse, destroyed. Starling's bracers cut off her connection to the Spirit Shores, and if she were to somehow die, she wouldn't be able to go there. Could something similar have happened to Frost? I know that there's a popular theory that Frost is or was the wielder of a Dawn Shard. Could this power be protecting him, but cut him off from the others in the process? This all seems like a pretty major plot setup for the future, and I'm expecting Frost's return to be a pivotal moment in a desperate situation for a ragtag group of heroes. Well, if Frost ever decided to intervene. Hoid's relationships have been quite the mystery to readers at this point. We know that Jasnah and Hoid dated for a while during books 3 through 5 of the Stormlight Archive. This was broken off pretty early into Wind and Truth though. In Isles of the Emberdark, we get a pretty big lore drop for this charming man. Hoid has a wife who doesn't remember him, specifically a wife who could help free him from being trapped. Well, in the most recent interview that Brandon has done with the 17th Shard, he finally confirmed which Shard Hoid dated in the past. It also happened to be the dragon that he dated in the past, Valor.
Is the dragon Hoid dated and the vessel Hoid dated the same person?
Yes.
So there is it Valor?
It's Valor. But that's a spoiler! I give you guys spoilers.
Is it possible that Hoid and Valor got married at some point? If this is the case, why would Valor no longer remember marrying Hoid? Well, we already know that there are conflicting sources of information with Valor's disposition towards Hoid. If you want more details on that, check out our series on Hoid's letters here, specifically the ones from Rhythm of War and Wind and Truth. It would make sense that a dragon could help Hoid out of his predicament, since he's looking for Frost to help him at the moment. The strange things happening with Valor may also explain why she no longer remembers being married to Hoid. This is one thing we'll just have to read and find out. I wanted to take this last slot to draw some of the fun connections we saw in the book. First up, Xyces and Crow. If you read Tress of the Emerald Sea, you know that the Dynamics Captain Crow was almost Captain Tress instead. The young Lumarian witted her way out of her enslavement to the dragon Xyces by trading her fate to Captain Crow. We now get to see Crow captaining a much more advanced crew of sailors in a much different looking ship, and she, of course, is still working for the dragon. She was then mutinied almost immediately within this book. That's 2 for 2 on Secret Project Crow mutinies. We also hear a quick name drop from Ed when he talks about some of his Silverlight Arcanist friends. Julio. Yes, the Windrunner has found his way to immortality and is now a lore keeper. So basically he and Sigzil just traded places. At least Silverlight has Chowda and Supales now. We know thanks to Nas that Chris went back to Taldane because things aren't going well there. Who would have thought that Autonomy's people weren't going to be friendly with each other? So what do you think? Did you miss any of these cool connections? Did you pick up on something we didn't? Roast us in the comments below. Kolo?